Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on Discover the Aerospace Economy in Canada. We are going to start very shortly, so I will first give you a few practical information. So as you probably noticed, your cameras and microphone are switched off. So if you want to communicate with us, you can do it by sending your questions in the questions tab that you should see on the bottom right of your screen. So do not hesitate at any time during the webinar to send questions to our speakers. We will take some time at the end to answer them. Also, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on Aerospace Valley YouTube channel. And we will also send you all the presentation afterwards, so you will receive the contact of our speakers from today. Now that's being said, we can start with the agenda and the presentation of our speakers. So let me introduce myself first. I am Annelise Stéphan. I'm working for Aerospace Valley, which is the main aerospace and defense cluster in Europe, and we are based in the southwest of France. And I'm managing Metastars project, as part of which we are organizing this webinar today. So we will start with a short introduction to Metastars project, and then we will have a presentation from Kiman Nguyen and Constance Terrier from the Canadian Embassy in France. We will introduce us the Canadian aerospace markets. Then we will have a focus on the Quebec aerospace ecosystem with Damien Pereira from Aero Montréal. And in the second part of the webinar, we will have some interventions and experience shared by three speakers. So there is Guillaume Gaspari from DCM Group in Canada, and two European companies, so Aurélie Dehouk from IC and Joanne Berthet from Stix4D. So thank you all for being with us this afternoon or this morning for those of you who are joining us from Canada. And we can start with the first introduction about Metastars. So we are organizing this webinar as part of this project, which is a Eurocluster supported by the EU Single Market Programme. And the objective of Metastars is to support the resilience of the European aerospace and defense industry, and also to accelerate the digital and green transition in this industry. With Metastars, we are focusing on SMEs, and we are working with other clusters and all stakeholders across Europe who can support the resilience of SMEs. So this project is coordinated by Aerospace Valley, and we are working on it in partnership with three other European clusters. So there is Aviation Valley in Poland, Coralia in Greece, and CTA in Spain. And with Metastars, so we want to support SMEs resilience, focusing on many different aspects and factors who contribute to resilience, one of them being internationalization, because accessing new markets is a way for European companies to develop. So this is why we are organizing this webinar today, to provide companies with information about the Canadian markets, which is one of the markets that we target with the Metastars. And as part of the project, we always also provided direct financial support to a few SMEs who wanted to expand in Canada. So we did that through a call for services that was organized last year. And Stix4D and IC, that you will hear later on, are laureates on this call. So if you are interested in knowing more about Metastars, you can follow our news or on our website and social media, and you can also contact us at the email you can see here. And I won't be longer about Metastars, so we can dive into today's subject. So we can have now the first presentation from the Canadian Embassy in France. So Kiman and Constance, I'll let you tell us about the aerospace economy in Canada and also the services that you provide at the embassy. So Constance and Kiman, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Aerospace Valley, as well as Metastars project partners for putting together today's webinar. So I'm Kiman Nguyen. Trade Commissioner at the Canadian Embassy in France. I cover several sectors, including the aerospace industry. And I'm glad to be here with you today with my colleague Constance Terrier, who is Investment Officer. And as you will see, our roles are very much complementary. My job is to support Canadian companies doing business here in the French aerospace market, whereas Constance's role is to support French companies that want to establish themselves in Canada. Next slide, please. And that's basically what we do, the Trade Commissioner Service, supporting Canadian exporters outside of Canada and helping foreign companies opening subsidiaries in Canada. We have a truly global reach, as we have 160 offices around the world and across Canada. And we have a very strong European network, as in each of your countries, we have colleagues, trade commissioners that do exactly what Constance and I do, but in your own local markets. And we'll be very happy to put you in touch with them. So really feel free to reach out to us. Next slide. So my presentation today will be about the Canadian aerospace sector, as your companies are currently thinking about approaching this market with the support of Metastar's project. And really, the main takeaway that I would like you to remember from this presentation is that Canada can be a real growth driver for your companies. And I think that's particularly important in today's context, in which the aerospace industry is facing various challenges. Some of these challenges are due to the fact that the aerospace industry at the global level is still in some ways in the aftermath of the pandemic, which puts a lot of pressure on the whole supply chain and on your companies. Other challenges are caused by climate change, which will require the whole industry to invest massively in R&D to develop green technologies. So in light of this context, resilience and growth will rely on not only your capacity to find trade opportunities abroad, but probably more importantly, in your capacity to find the right partners, be they suppliers, innovation partners, JV partners, acquisition targets, or who knows, a buyer for a company, in order to address these common challenges that I just mentioned. Innovate, remain at the cutting edge of your specific expertise, share the investment risks, and foster mutual growth. In both cases, Canada should really remain on top of your mind. So why so? First of all, because Canada is a big market. It's actually the 5th largest aerospace market in the world. It ranks in the top 1 to 4 or 5 in various segments of the aerospace market, such as simulation, but also the production of civil engines and of commercial aircraft. Next slide. So in terms of volume, the Canadian aerospace industry has an annual turnover of about 27 billion Canadian dollars and supports approximately 212,000 jobs. It is definitely a globally oriented industry, as it exports over 80% of its production, especially in the US, as both industries are in some ways integrated. It is, just like in Europe, an industry that is largely dominated by SMEs. We have a few champions, but we have hundreds and hundreds of companies like yours that are SMEs. And finally, it is a pan-Canadian industry divided into 2 main sectors. So the production of aircraft, and that's largely centered in Quebec and in Ontario, but also the maintenance of aircraft, and that's centered in British Columbia, Manitoba, and Ontario. Next slide. So as you can see on this map, there are OEMs present in almost all of Canadian provinces. Next slide. But of course, if the Canadian aerospace industry is pan-Canadian, there are a few provinces that clearly stand out, and that's the case of Quebec and Ontario. So first of all, Quebec is definitely Canada's #1 aerospace hub and the 3rd in the world after Toulouse and Seattle. But I won't say too much because I don't want to spoil Damien Ferreira's presentation. Damien will indeed tell you more about this province. The second aerospace hub, last slide, please. The second aerospace hub in Canada is Ontario, and you will find great opportunities, so business opportunities, partnership opportunities in Ontario. Ontario indeed concentrates an important presence of OEMs, such as Bombardier, de Havilland, Airbus, helicopters, Diamond Aircraft. It also concentrates a large number of tier 1 suppliers. Actually, over half of the world's top 25 aerospace companies are established in Ontario, with a very strong expertise in landing gears. 75% of Boeing and Airbus commercial aircraft have landing gears that are developed and produced in Ontario. And finally, Ontario is Canada's space leaders with companies like MDA and Telesat, and generates about half of Canada's space revenue and 46% of Canada's space employment. Next slide. Western Canada is definitely the new kid on the block in the Canadian aerospace landscape, as de Havilland, headquartered in Calgary, so in the province of Alberta, is currently in the process of building the de Havilland field, which, when it will be in full operation, will see the production of several aircraft, the Canadair, the Twin Otters, but also the Dash 8-400. Other than that, Western Canada's aerospace industry is very strong in the MRO field, but also in aerial firefighting, the development of drone, and cold weather testing. And just so you know, almost all engine manufacturers have cold weather testing facilities in Manitoba, as the province offers in some part of its territory an average of 222 sub-zero days per year, which represent, of course, very long winters. Atlantic Canada is more focused in the defense industry and the shipbuilding industry in particular, but it has aerospace companies that are specialized in MRO and composites, such as Airbus Atlantic, for example. Next slide. So Canada is not only an important aerospace market, it is also an ecosystem where the future of aviation is being prepared and a place where to advance your own innovations. So the Canadian aerospace industry invests heavily in new technologies. It actually ranks #1 in terms of R&D expenditures among all other Canadian manufacturing industries. And among all the areas of innovation in which the Canadian aerospace industry invests, I wanted to mention 3 of them. The first one is sustainable aviation, and the whole ecosystem is really fully engaged in that path. At the industrial level, the industry leads several programs. Some of them are developed by OEMs, such as Bombardier, Pratt & Whitney Canada, de Havilland. Canada is also home to SAF production projects, be they biomass SAF and synthetic SAF. They now have an association of their own called CSAF. Air mobility and drone is another area of focus in Canada. Canadian companies involved in this field have recently created their own association called Canada Air Mobility Consortium. And several flagship programs are currently being developed by the industry and by OEMs such as Bell, Textron, and GDMS, so General Dynamics. Finally, AI and quantum. These are 2 areas in which Canada is a global leader and a real pioneer, thanks to a great collaboration across university, industry, and provincial and federal governments. And of course, both fields have a lot of applications in our sector. So how can your company benefit from all that Canada has to offer? First, by partnering with a local company, and to do so, I strongly encourage you to go to Canada and to attend trade shows in Canada to meet with your potential future Canadian partners. So we have great events such as Forum de l'Innovation en Aérospatiale, Aeromart Montréal, or the AIC Summit. You can also meet with Canadian companies at large European events, such as Farnborough Air Show or Le Bourget Aeromart Toulouse. Do not forget to take advantage of local aerospace ecosystems. They have a lot of networking opportunities to offer, but also intelligence gathering, such as today's webinar. But that, of course, you know, since you are participating in this webinar. Finally, do not hesitate to use your national trade agencies, so our equivalents in your own country that are there to support you abroad. And of course, do not hesitate to work with us, especially if you want to establish a subsidiary in Canada. And I will let my colleague Constance tell you all about why you should open a subsidiary in Canada. Constance, over to you.
Bonjour, hello. Thank you, Kiman, for this introduction. Great introduction to the sector. Let me introduce you to the service we offer. Maybe the next slide, please. Our support services are free of charge, and we are designed to provide you with maximum information and assistance in realizing your investment strategy in Canada. The presentation of federal and provincial ecosystem is often the first step in confirming the validity of your Canadian choice. We draw on the local expertise of provincial and municipal investment promotion agency. Canada offers incentive and tax credits program to companies looking to invest in Canada. As close as possible to the field and to your project, this agency will guide you and inform you about the financial and tax incentive available to you across Canada. We can help you plan a relevant business meeting during your visits to Canada. As Kiman mentioned, connect with new network, meet new potential partners. We also put you in touch with industry association and our networks of experts to help you accelerate your investment process. Next slide, please. Among Canada's many assets, I've chosen to highlight some of them for today's discussion. Excellent economic fundamentals. The Canada economy grew by an estimate at 3.4% in 2022, and it's projected to have one of the strongest growth rates among G7 economies in 2024. In 2023, Canada had the highest employment and population growth among the G7 and is expected to maintain this position in 2024. Inflation remains high at 3.8% in September 2024, but decreasing. Competitive business environment. Among just G7 countries, Canada ranked third with respect to the ease of starting a business and the likelihood to attract the most investment in the next 3 years. Canada ranks fifth among the G20 countries in terms of least complex jurisdiction for conducting business. In 2024, with 26.2% combined federal provincial corporate income tax rate, it's one of the lowest of the G7. A promising venue. Canada's commitment to support innovation is strong. It has invested an additional $750 million through to 2027 to further support the growth and development of Canada Global Innovation Cluster. This cluster will continue to facilitate collaboration among industry leaders, small and medium-sized companies, and post-secondary institutions on large-scale projects in the field of digital technology, plant protein, advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence use in supply chain, and ocean science. Canada offers one of the most generous R&D tax incentives to business in G7. A greener economy, because Canada has a lower statutory corporate income tax rate, 79% for zero-emission technology manufacturing and processing in the G7. It ranks second out of 18 countries for featuring 12 of the world top 100 clean tech company most likely to have the best market impact for the next 5 to 10 years. Next slide, please. Canada has the most educated workforce in the world. Over 60% of the adult population has a post-secondary diploma. You will find a solid support for your R&D, smart people, and linguistically diverse, because nearly 1 in 4 Canadians speak one of the over 200 languages in addition to English and French. Easy access to markets. Canada focuses on free and open trade with the rest of the world, connected by global business with 1.5 billion consumers in 51 countries worldwide. The EU and Canada are bound by CETA, but Canada has also signed free trade agreement with other countries, opening up new horizons for you. As for example, the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, CUSMA. Canada is also an excellent place to live. Canada is a stable and cost-effective place to do business, great nature, high standard of living. Canada ranks 8th in the world for well-being and 3rd for environmental quality. It's also ranked 1st for security, so very secure. Maybe next slide, please. Foreign direct investment creates opportunity. Oh, yes, this one, please. So foreign direct investment creates opportunities, stimulates economic development, and introduces new ideas and innovation to Canada. For Canadians, this means more high-quality jobs and a stronger, more sustainable economy. So Canada is an open and welcoming country for foreign companies. We are present in your region to support you in your project. It may be a new investment. This greenfield operation marks the beginning of a company's presence in Canada. It's an adventure in which you won't be alone. Because Canada is a large country harboring many opportunities, we can also help you to grow in Canada by expanding your activity from coast to coast to coast. Finally, we can help you identify potential target companies that will complement your offering, giving you greater penetration to the Canadian market and facilitate your growth. As you can see, the Trade Commissioner and the service we offer are your ally in your strategy to establish in Canada. Don't hesitate to contact me and Kiman or our colleague in Spain, in Greece, or in Poland, so we can put you in touch with them. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Kiman and Constance, for this great presentation of the Canadian market, its characteristics and opportunities. We are going to have now a focus on one of the Canadian province, on Quebec. So Damien, I'll let you present us the Quebec ecosystem and the work that you are doing at Aero Montréal.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the Metastars Consortium for this invitation and this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about the Quebec aerospace ecosystem. Thank you also to our colleagues from the Canadian Embassy in France for this presentation. So to get into the content, so who is Aero Montréal? We are the Quebec Aerospace Cluster. We are a strategic think tank that groups all the major decision makers in Quebec. Our role is to mobilize the entire ecosystem and support its global reach in terms of innovation, growth, and capacity. Next slide, please. So here's the board of directors of Aero Montréal, one of the largest, I think, 35 members representing the 5 OEMs that we have in Quebec. So you can see them on the right side with Bombardier, CAE, Airbus, Pratt & Whitney Canada, and Bell Helicopter. We also have like 15 large integrators that are in Quebec and about 215 SMEs. You can see as well that on the board of directors, we have all the research institutions, academic groups, and we also have the 3 levels of government partnering on this board. Next slide. So what represents Quebec on the global stage? So yes, we would like to say that we are the 3rd largest aerospace center in the world in terms of concentration, where you can build a plane from A to Z within a 25-kilometer radius around Montreal. So that's something that differentiates us on the global stage. Where many of the companies that are in the top 100 worldwide, we are the 6th worldwide in sales as well. So you can see on the right side that Quebec represents 3% of the worldwide sales, with Canada at 2%. So altogether, we have about 5%. Next slide, please. A few numbers. So you can see that we have about 37,200 jobs in Quebec, totaling about 18 billion of sales. So out of this amount, 80% is exported outside of Quebec, which makes us the first sector of the Quebec economy in terms of export with 11%. In the past 25 years, it's industry growth of about 5%. And an interesting fact is you can see that 75% of all R&D spendings across Canada are spent in the Greater Montreal area. So out of $1 invested in the aerospace industry, 75 cents are spent in the Greater Montreal area. And another interesting fact is 1 worker out of 67 works in the aerospace industry in Montreal. So you have a lot of chances to know someone in the aerospace industry if you live in Montreal. The ecosystem of Quebec, so we say often that we are lucky to have a strong and diversified economy, touching about all the sectors, so ranging from civil helicopter, with of course a Bell helicopter, but regional commercial aircraft with Airbus and Bombardier. We have small gas turbine with Pratt & Whitney Canada, CAE with simulation and training equipment, but also we have all the companies and the space technology with the Space Agency based in Quebec, the Defense Commercial Landing Gear, MRO, avionics, advanced aircraft mobility, and drones. Next slide, please. So what it represents, you can see that the main exports are in aerial and so large and over 15,000 kilogram and lower than 15,000 kilogram. Of course, flight simulators and training equipment, helicopter, parts aircraft, landing gear. You can see as well that USA is about 57% of all the exports, following by Europe at 25%. So we have this is our 2 main clients for the exports of Quebec. Next slide, please. So also Montreal is the world capital of civil aviation with ICAO and all the other IATA associations. Like you can see all of them here. So we are particularly lucky to have all the regulators based in Montreal. So it's a good asset for testing, for certifying new equipment. So if I dive a little bit on how Aero Montreal works, so we have 4 strategic pillars in Aero Montreal. So we have one, of course, focusing on next generation and workforce. That's a concern for us, but I think it's a concern for everyone in the aerospace industry. But we will address what are the training programs, what are the career path of students here, and of course we will try to attract manpower from overseas and talents. The second pillar is about growth, supporting companies in Quebec and internationally as well. Innovation and competitiveness, which makes it very important for us. As you see, we are a large innovation hub, and so we have a lot of investment in that field. And of course, the image and of the industry and the sustainable initiatives. Next slide. So you can see that we are grouped under a working committee. So ranging from all this field, human resource, innovation, defense, and security, all ranging field, but we aim on the mid and long-term development of the supply chain to have a carbon neutral, competitive, and inclusive supply chain, trying as well to de-risk the supply chain worldwide. You can see that the 6 strategic paths concern sustainability and competitiveness, cybersecurity, advanced air mobility, diversification, inclusion and diversity, and growth, of course, and international collaboration. If I dive a little bit more onto what are the tools that we use to support the company in Quebec, and this is like a program that we run constantly with federal and provincial governments. You can see that we have different tools. So if I start with the red arrow, it's about productivity and competitiveness. So we'll support companies with MAC to increase their competitiveness and their best practices. We're supporting as well for the digital transition with MacFab, supporting eco-responsibility and cybersecurity. So that will be like programs that are funded partially by governments and supported in the operational side with Aero Montreal. On the yellow arrow, you'll see like the growth on commercialization and partnership with Start Aero, which is supporting startups based in Quebec, SD Quebec, which will have all the security and defense sectors. And as well, I'm sorry for that slide, it's in French, but you will also have Accelerator 360, which is a merger and acquisition supporting program. And preferred suppliers, we will work with OEMs to support their strategic suppliers. On the last gray arrow, you'll see all the initiatives to support the talents and the next generation workforce. Next slide, please. So we have a partnership like all over the world, about 31 agreements with foreign partners. So as you see, many of European countries are concerned as well with this MOUs. We tend to support like a cross-collaborative innovation, supply chain development, as well as the mobility of our workforce with our colleagues in Europe. We'll do it as well in USA, Mexico, and South Korea, Japan, mainly in Asia. We also reached like a consortium called the GSCP. So maybe a few of yours are familiar with the ESCP, the European Aerospace Cluster Partnership. So we group with 25 more clusters internationally to create the GSCP with the support of Ambo Aviation and Aerospace Valley. Thank you, Aerospace Valley, to create these international chapters of collaboration between clusters. So this will give us a preferred way of accessing and comparing how we do support companies in our jurisdiction and how we can increase cooperation internationally. One project coming up soon, and that's pretty interesting for you, will be the Innovation Zone of Quebec, the Aerospace Innovation Zone. So Aero Montreal is supporting this project for the past 2 years now, trying to create an innovation zone that will involve many of the stakeholders of the industry. So you can see on the right side all the strategic paths that are considered in that project. So it runs from digitalization, advanced materials, electrification, all the showcase that we can also provide in Montreal. And the two main subjects will be the decarbonization and the autonomy, which are on the next slide. So yeah, you can see, so this is the two main topics of the future innovation zone of Quebec, and we'll have 3 sites. So you can see the Paul Saint-Laurent, the middle one, is close to the International Airport of Montreal, and it will be like located on the Technology Park nearby. It will be the main center with 2 other centers, one in Mirabel, where you can find the factories from Bell, Airbus, for example, and one in Longueuil, where you have the Space Agency and the National School of Quebec, Pratt & Whitney, Canada. So this is the 3 main zones that will join together to create this new economic zone. And you will have here about, like, I provide you this slide for you to see like who will be the partners that have reached the adventure. And we are hoping that this future innovation zone will be announced pretty shortly in Quebec. So that's maybe a good entry gate for any company who would like to do a business in Quebec. And finally, I just wanted to mention that we'll have like a large event coming up in Quebec on May 21st to 22nd. That's the International Forum of Aerospace Innovation. So this is like the largest event in Canada this year, 1,500 attendees. We'll have about 2,600 like B2Bs. We have 24 countries represented, so that's also like one with the most of the outreach. United Kingdom is the country of honor this year, and the 3 main subjects that will be discussed during that for innovation forum are collaborative innovation models, emerging technology, and inclusive innovation value chain. One information that also I can provide is that on the next days, so from the 23rd to the 25th, it will be the first Canadian Space Week happening like in partnership with the Innovation Forum. So you'll have like some activities in the same area of the forum in the Convention Center of Montreal, but also you have like some activities on the South Shore with the Space Agency. So if you on that week, you will have like both events concentrated. So it's maybe a good moment to come to visit Quebec and learn more about our ecosystem. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Damien, for all this information about the Quebec ecosystem. We know that this is a province that interests many SMEs who want to expand in Canada. So before we move to the second section of the webinar, I would just like to remind you that if you want to send a question to any of our speakers, you can use the question tab on the side of your screen, and then we will take the questions at the end of the webinar. So now we are going to have three speakers sharing their experiences with the Canadian market. So first we will start with Guillaume Gaspari. So Guillaume Gaspari, you are working for DCM Group, which is a Canadian company, but you're also French, so you know well both the Canadian and the European business culture. So can you tell us about the activities of DCM and also share your experience? So I guess that you have insights that might be interesting on how to work with Canadians.
Yes, good morning. Yes, I am a French guy. I worked in for French groups all my career, and I lived in 7 different countries. And 7 years ago, I decided to invest in SME in Quebec. Next slide, please. Just to make it short, we are 350 people. We do more than $85 million revenue. We have 3 facilities in Canada, all around Montreal, 1 in Toulouse, and the accumulation of our space area is more than 200,000 square feet. Next one. We are involved in 3 different activities. We have these three factories here, and we manufacture parts. Sorry, we manufacture parts for OEM, aircraft and satellite parts. We manufacture ground support equipment, and we do repair on the parts. My presentation is not really focused on what we do, but to give you my experience as a French guy, how to work in a Canadian environment, because I believe that some of you want either to come to Montreal, in Quebec, to develop your own business, or to interact with companies in Quebec. So I will develop 2 main considerations. HR and cultural consideration. About HR, you have to know that Quebec and especially Montreal, we have a real crisis in manpower now. So you have to know in advance that it's quite difficult to get people. And as far as we are concerned in DCM, we are actually attracting people from different countries. You have also to understand that Montreal is maybe a detail for you, but it's very important. Montreal is an island in the middle of a huge river. And if you have, depending where is your office, you will attract people from the North Bank, from the island, or from the South Bank. Do not expect people from the North Bank to work on the South Bank. So if you put your office in San Bruno like us, you will never have people coming from Blainville or other factory. So that it's very important when you decide where to put your company. Cultural consideration. For people who are French on the other side, you have to understand that the Quebecois people are not French living in North America, but North American people speaking French, which is completely different. So it means that you have to deal with people who speak the same language as you, but who have a complete different cultural basis and experience. For example, here, like in US, I lived 8 years in US. Like in US, here the people are not Cartesian like French. They are binary. They are binary. So you are in North America, this part of the world where they invented the norms. So do not try to convince. It is, unfortunately, it is 1 or 0. Okay, that is first important. Second thing, when you try to hire people, the resume, the CV are completely different than one you have in Europe. When you read a CV, an American or Canadian CV, you believe that you are hiring a guy who is the most beautiful, powerful, successful guy in the world. So you have to read between the lines, okay? And that is very interesting. Do not try to use your format, your European format, when you deal with people. for French people, sorry, other European interlocutors, the system of grandes écoles here do not exist. So it means that you can have a very successful candidate who was selling shoes or whatever in aerospace. You have to avoid this systematic French approach that you have to go from ENAC, super-héros, whatsoever. So that it doesn't exist in North America. Another thing, when you have a company and when you try to manage a company in Quebec from France, be careful with the working hours. Here in Canada, the people, they do not have meetings at 8 o'clock in the evening. Do not expect that. We are not in Europe. They work very early. At 7:30, the office are almost full, except in Aero Montréal. But do not expect the people to stay after 6 o'clock just for a meeting. Doesn't exist here. Maybe at the top level, but even that is, if you go to Pratt & Whitney Bombardier, look at the car park at 5:30, you have no cars, okay? And even some companies, they close and they switch off the electricity at 6 o'clock. So that is very important. And my last advice, my last comment, it is what I say every time to everybody I deal with. Outside your own country, the alien is you. So it means that if you try to explain when you are in Quebec that in France or in your own country is better, they do not how to work and so, do not forget that you are not at home. You have people who can work somewhere else, who have been trained and formatted differently. So very be careful. You have to be here. You are French, you are Greek, you are Polish, you are whatsoever, Spanish, whatsoever. Do not try to be Canadian yourself, but do not try to transform the people you talk with to be Polish, French, Spanish like you. It's completely different. And I tell you, I lived in 7 different countries, and I always use this way of working, and it always worked. We missed some time where there was some failure, but please follow this advice. I have already more than 40 years of experience in different countries, and I can tell you that it works. So thank you.
Thank you, Damien, for this, Guillaume, sorry, for this very useful advice and very practical. I'm sure it will be useful to anyone who wants to work with Canadians. We are now going to have another experience shared by Aurélie from IC. So IC is a French SME who's also a laureate of MetaStars. And so Aurélie, can you tell us about the core business of IC and also explain us what actions you undertook to expand in Canada, because I think that you are in the process of opening a subsidiary there.
Yeah, thank you. Nice, Guillaume. This is production. It kind of resonates in me because I'm further new in Canada, but I see some stuff that is, yeah, I'm a beginner, but yeah, there's some stuff that do resonate. Hi everyone, I'm Aurélie. I'm the CEO of a French company, small French company, IC, which is based in France, in Bordeaux. Our business is in the field and the sector of space application, the downstream applications. We specialize in the use of satellite data for environment and climate issues, and with particular focus on the issues of the coastal environment and biodiversity. The company is about to celebrate its 10th birthday this year. We are kind of a small company because with 15 people in Bordeaux. We've been doing business mostly in France with the public sector, governmental agencies, cities, maritime industries like ports, and also the European Space Agency this last years. So why are we moving to Canada? This is maybe the question for today. Well, with the maturity gained in France and a bit in Europe, working with ESA, finally, the maturity of our products selling in France and so on, it has allowed us at the end to open eyes more realistically on what could be, how we could be able finally to export our services in a new country. And thanks to Aerospace Valley and the Space to Web program funded by Europe 2 years ago, we've been able to participate to a first business mission in Canada, Halifax, Nova Scotia, and a bit in Quebec also. And typically, this very first mission was very successful, quite rapidly, as it allowed us to being connected with a major account for us, being the Ministry for Environment and Climate Change in Quebec, which was really highly interested with the first meetings and so on. And so it was mid-2022, and in the following months, very rapidly, the Ministry for Environment would like us to work with them on the topics of biodiversity, marine biodiversity mapping, and so on, which we were the kind of the key topics we are dealing in France with marine protected areas and so on. And so yes, from this very big account has moved very rapidly and quickly with us towards contracting. These contracts had just been signed because they were waiting for us to settle in Quebec before signing. So this is also what has been done a couple of months ago. We've opened a subsidiary in Montreal in a small business center called Fabrique 8 at Marché Jean Talon. So right now there's nobody from IC working there in the Canadian subsidiary, but there are a couple of jobs that will be soon open with the first contracts awarded. This one and another one that is coming, which you will find some information soon on the social media. And from that, I would say that myself have been involved a bit these last 2 years trying to develop the business in Canada, in Quebec, a bit in Ontario. What is quite good so far now, and the last 1.5 years, I've been just doing some business trips every 3-4 times a year, I would say. My plan, just to share with you, is to settle myself in Montreal probably beginning of next year to manage the company here and do the business development in Canada. And what I could share, so as you understand, I'm quite new in Canada, and I see it's very new, so we don't have the same background with Guillaume. So it's very interesting to have his feedbacks, of course, but what I can share with you is how I felt, or how my associate Virginie and I felt this last year when deciding to settle here in Canada, is that in our field, environment, climate, and climate adaptation, climate change, I would say that the same level of awareness and concern as in Europe and as in France. So this is quite easily, finally, to transpose, I would say, the kind of services we developed in France or in Europe, dealing with satellite data for environment and climate, and to move them to Canada. So there's also the same policies as in Europe for environment and climate. Canada is definitely a leading country with regard to these issues. So all those many positive points with regard to our activities, IC's activities at least. In the space sector, you have shared some stuff. Of course, there's the Canadian Space Agency settled here in Montreal, or quite close to Montreal. They are very close link with the European Space Agency and the European space policies, so that there are business opportunities in between companies in Europe and companies in Canada. So this is all many plus for the kind of activity IGC is developing. What could I say also? Quebec is cool because it's French speaking, so it helps a bit for starting activities in Canada. So it's quite a bit easier. For sure, also the network, being the scientific network, the business networks, they are quite close and quite linked in between France and Quebec, in between Europe and Canada. So this is really, really positive point so that we could develop our business and our connections quite rapidly. Canadian people and Quebec people, they love doing networking and so on. I heard you didn't have, but I heard and I experiment myself. I do love it also, so it's quite nice. But for sure, it's this is something that is quite different. There are some events, for sure, you have to monitor these events, be in these events, being the one in the aerospace sector you were introducing, Damien, or the one of our market, environment, climate, and so on. People do prefer, I guess, having a coffee or having lunch with you better than having you for a real meeting in their offices. So since I'm there and doing business, I'm moving to drinking coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, but well, this is just what I have to do, start drinking coffee, because everyone wants to have a coffee or lunch, but not a real meeting in an office meeting room or so on. And yeah, I don't have at this stage any, I would say, negative experiments or feedbacks or so on. I guess it will come back. It will come with the years, or maybe really starting in the coming years. But for now, I don't have much. I heard, and you tell them that manpower is really an issue in Canada, in Quebec, and everywhere. The same housing is an issue also. The level of life, le coût de la vie, is maybe a bit higher than what I know in France and so on. But typically, I'm highly positive for now. So don't hesitate if you want to share or ask me or ask questions by email or where I will try to share the little I know about Canada and Quebec with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Aurélie, for sharing with us your experience, and we're very happy to hear that everything is going well for IC in Canada. We are going to have a last intervention from Joanne Berthet from Stix4D, which is another European SME, and also Loretta Metastars. So Joanne, can you present us your activities at Stix4D and also tell us about your experience with Canada, because I know that you had a mission there not so long ago, and that you came back with interesting leads for you.
Yes, so hello everybody. So I'm Joanne Berthet. I'm the CEO and founder of Stix4D. So Stix4D was created in 2018. We provide applied research and consulting services in environmental sciences, such as geomorphology, geology, glaciology, applied in mountains and rivers. We are a small team of 5 persons, including 4 PhDs. And for the past 2 years now, we have been in contact with Quebec-based companies specializing in drone image acquisition by drones. And I personally went in British Columbia 6 years ago for postdoctoral research. And I've been asked to review a research project in Quebec last year. Then Benacchio, who is also a geomorphologist, joined our team last year, and she did several years of postdoctoral research in Quebec during the last year. So these are all the reasons why we decided to apply to the Metastars services on internationalization in Canada grant. And we really wanted to develop our business outside of France, and we thought that it was the right time to develop our activities there in Canada. So we had 2 main objectives. The first one was to offer our gram size measurement services, which consist in measuring river pebbles using drone images with Gale. So Gale is a software that we developed. It's a deep learning based software that needed 2 years of development and a lot of research partnership. It's based on a drone image, a very high resolution drone image. Our second main objective was to assess our capacity to set up a subsidiary in Quebec to offer all the rest of our services. So STIX4D strategy, commercial strategy is quite unusual. As I said, we come from an academic background, so we don't have a classical commercial approach, and we use our scientific network as a gateway to business. So we use a Metastar grant to go to Quebec and spend a couple of weeks to present all of our services and meet as many people, essentially researchers, as possible. So as a young father, I was not able to travel a lot last year. So Véronique Benacio replaced me, and she went to Quebec 2 weeks at the end of October. She presented our work, Gale, at the AQT Congress. So AQT is the Association Québécoise de Télédétection. And we are now part of the AQT board representing private companies. So after the AQT Congress, she met a dozen of researchers and former researchers which are working now in public institutions and private companies in Quebec. So all our presentations, all our meetings were very well received, and we hope to set up a couple of research projects with universities in Quebec using Gale. Of natural resources, and fortunately they can only contract with for this kind of service with Canadian-based companies, but we expect to deal with them through the Canadian company which we are in contact for 2 years now by subcontracting. So we are still waiting for this contract, and we expect to see it in the few months. We also identified a lack of, not a lack of skills, but more like a lack of resources, of essentially human resources from private companies in environmental sciences. And this translates into a very significant for us economic potential. So the results of this program for us is very positive, but I think the most difficult part now is coming. The results for us of this program shows the importance to set up a subsidiary in Canada if you want to develop a sustainable and durable business there. But you know, I say we are a small team of only 5 persons, so we are a small company and we don't have the financial capacity of a large group. So we need to be very, very well prepared if you want to arrive and to set up a subsidiary there in Canada. So we expect that we will be able to set up this subsidiary maybe in 2025. And still until this time, we are continuing our effort in sales and also in networking to try to get some small contract and to set up a research project, and in order to get the most visibility as possible. So now we will go back. We are going back in Quebec this year to see in which area, in which part of the Quebec we could settle in, and with which kind of resources, especially which kind of human resources because if we want to settle in Canada, we really think we need some person who can really work there. So finally, Quebec is very interesting for French company, and because of course of the language, but not only. I think it could be also a gate for the whole country for contract and for doing business with all the other provinces of Canada. And personally, this program has given me the desire to have a professional but also personal experience and projects in all the Canadian provinces, especially in BC, that I would like to go in the few years for working for a couple of years. So thank you for your attention, and thank you to all the Metastar team to support us.
Thank you, Johan, for sharing your experience with us. We were very happy that Metastars was able to support your internationalization strategy, and we wish you good luck for the next step and your next mission to Canada. To all participants, this is your last chance to send the questions to our speakers if you have any doubt left before we finalize the webinar. I would like to remind you that we will send you the presentation from today afterwards. So if you want to contact one of our speakers or get in touch with the Metastars, you will have all the contact information to do so. The recording of the webinar will also be available on our Aerospace Valley YouTube channel, so you can share it with someone who might be interested if you want to. I encourage you to follow us, Metastars Project, on social media to know about our next activities. I also encourage you to check the forum innovation from Aero Montréal if you want to get in touch with potential business partners in Quebec, and also to check what are the services offered by your trade commissioners from Canadian embassies in your respective countries. I don't see any questions, so it means that all our speakers were very comprehensive and all the doubts were covered during this webinar. So I would just wish you all a nice evening or nice day, depending on where you are. And we are closing this webinar. Thank you to all our speakers, and we hope to see you soon for new collaborations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.